Welcome back to Fireside Giants, a featured podcast by Empire Sports Media. I'm your host, Alexander Wilson, and my co-host, Anthony Rivardo. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Alex Wilson ESM, Anthony_Rivardo. Make sure to smash that subscribe button on YouTube and leave that review on iTunes. We have a big week ahead of us. We got Monday Night Football for the Giants versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Going to be a bloodbath either way you look at it. We're going to break that down for you, kind of look at the in-betweens and the mismatches across the board for the Giants, and it's not looking pretty from our early analysis, I must tell you. You can probably figure that one out for yourselves. But Anthony, my friend, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm still a little bit heartbroken over our Thursday night loss in Philadelphia, but I guess I'm just pushing ahead, looking forward to the trade deadline and looking forward to hopefully being competitive on Monday night.
Yeah, I mean, competitive is all we can ask for against this Tampa Bay team.
Correct.
They are picking up steam very quickly. They started the season a little bit, okay, like Tom Brady might not be the same quarterback. In the last two games, they've scored about 84 points, about twice as much as the Giants have. So, and against far better opponents than the Las Vegas Raiders and the Green Bay Packers. So we have a very, very tall task ahead of us. On the bright side, they won't have Chris Godwin. He fractured his, I think, pinky finger or one of his fingers on his left hand, and he will be absent for the Monday night contest, which makes our secondary matchups a little bit more favorable. Nonetheless, you remember last year, Janoris Jenkins allowed 190 yards and 3 touchdowns to Mike Evans. Luckily, we have James Bradbury this time around, which I think they'll just man-mark him, because if you can take away Mike Evans, then you force Tom Brady to go toward Rob Gronkowski and Scotty Miller. Scotty Miller it looks really, really good this year so far. I don't think that we have the necessary matchups to take him out of the game. I think they'll probably have Darnay Holmes stick to him, maybe Ryan Lewis, depending on if he's in the slot or on the boundary. And then you have Gronkowski, who I would imagine Logan Ryan and Jabril Peppers will probably communicate and switch off on him. He's a huge body. You need someone who's a really, really good cover guy like Logan Ryan, which I think he'll probably stick to him most of the game. I think he has the physicality and kind of that experience against players like him, considering he played with Gronkowski in New England. Might be a favorable matchup for the Giants on that portion. But then you have Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, two pretty good runners. Ronald Jones has been picking up some steam as a receiving back as well. And the Giants have one of the best defensive run-stopping units in the league, in the interior specifically. Leonard Williams, Dalvin Tomlinson, and Dexter Lawrence, very, very good. They just signed Jabal Shared I think last week, and he's known for his run-stopping, really good outside linebacker to replace Marcus Golden, who we traded for a 6th-round pick to the Arizona Cardinals. The Giants have been making a few low-key moves, and there's a lot of rumors going around. So, before we dive into the whole Tampa and kind of what their offensive defense looks like compared to ours, Anthony, what are you thinking about these rumors with Kevin Zeitler, Golden Tate, even Leonard Williams? Who are you looking at and might be thinking this is a good player to trade at this point?
I think that Golden Tate is probably as good as gone. I think they probably recognize it's the end of the road for him. He's not the same player that he once was, and it's probably time to just get as much value out of him as you possibly can, whether that be a 5th or 4th round pick or 6th round pick, somewhere over there in those later to middle rounds. I definitely think they can get a pick, and I think that they will. I think they're going to trade him. He made a great catch on Thursday night for a 39-yard touchdown, which showed that he still has a little bit left in the tank. I think that play might be a signal to other teams around the league that are considering trading for him. It might be a signal that he actually can contribute some quality reps. Probably not as like a full-time reliable starter, but he can make a few plays here and there that are reliable. And then you also have to think about the injuries around the league. Wide receivers dropped like flies in Week 7. Odell Beckham Jr. got hurt. The Browns, their offense is starting to click and it's starting to roll, so maybe they'll want to trade for Golden Tate or some other wide receiver in the league just to stabilize that offense for the long stretch and try and push into the playoffs. And then there's other teams. I think the Jaguars had 2 injuries at the wide receiver position. We know that the Green Bay Packers have really been having a revolving door in their receiving corps
That's
for a while.
Interesting. I kind of like that, Matt. That connection there with the Packers. I could see Golden Tate being very good with Aaron Rodgers for some reason, and the Browns too, like you mentioned. I think they do have a few solid guys that they can rely on. The Browns, but the Giants have a pretty good relationship with them, and I think maybe getting him, trading him for a 7th round pick is probably all the value you're going to get at this point. Conditional 7th rounder.
I read that they could get as high as a 5th. So We'll
For
see.
Golden Tate, really?
That's what I read, but we'll
His
see.
contract's not very favorable either, though, because they have an out after this year, which I understand, but he's still
Right.
going to count a pretty decent amount against the cap for the remainder of this season. I'll look it up right now to make sure that it's not like exponential, but I'm pretty sure he's making a pretty penny. Nonetheless, he's a decent receiver. We saw him last week. He had one catch for 39 yards and a touchdown. Today, I forget who said it, but somebody was like, I think it was the wide receiver coach, Tyke Tolbert. That's the wide receiver coach, right?
Yes.
So he said, Tate is a very, very talented player. He can make contested catches like we saw last week, but it's just a matter of I don't think he really fits our scheme very well. Jason Garrett just doesn't like to target him. Now his cap hit this year is 10 million, 10.4 million about. So whatever team consumes his contract is going to owe him over $5 million because it's not even the halfway point in the season yet. So the deadline would be after this week, so it would be about halfway. So that's about $5 million on the books. That's a lot of money for a receiver who hasn't done much this year. If they could get a 5th-round pick for him, I would sell him in a second. I wouldn't even wait more than that. I would get rid of him ASAP Rocky because
I agree.
The reality is he doesn't contribute much to this offense, and we just re-signed Corey Coleman as well to the practice squad. I think they'll elevate him soon. I think that you might as well give a guy like him a chance since Golden Tate's influence is really minimal at best.
If the Giants were to trade Golden Tate at the deadline, the cap savings would be $7.975 million, so almost $8 million in cap savings. That's with a 2020 dead cap of $2.4 million. And then there's also a dead cap of $5.14 million in 2021, but it's definitely $8 million in savings. It's pretty solid.
Terrible contract, by the way. I can't believe
it was a pretty bad contract. I was never really a fan of that contract.
They signed him to a 4-year deal with an out after 2 years with almost $5 million in dead cap. That makes no sense for an aging receiver.
It was essentially a 2-year deal because of that out, but still they are paying him for those final 2 years. But I think the more interesting trade candidate is Kevin Zeitler, because Kevin Zeitler is by far like the best player that we have on offense. He is our most consistent and our best offensive lineman and our best player on offense other than Saquon Barkley when he's healthy and probably Sterling Shepard when he's healthy. Kevin Zeitler is a really good offensive guard. Throughout his career, he's been one of the best pass protecting interior offensive linemen in the NFL. But the Giants are really bad right now, and they're starting to rebuild, and they need more assets and they need more draft picks. So, do they trade Kevin Zeitler for probably a day 2 pick, early day 2 pick? I'd assume they can get at least a 3rd-round pick out of Kevin Zeitler. He's good. So, do they trade him and put in Shane Lemieux in the starting lineup? Now, that makes me nervous to put Shane Lemieux in the starting lineup because we don't really know what we have in Shane Lemieux. We haven't seen him play. It's not even like Matt Parrott where we've seen him play at least a couple of series, and we were really impressed by it, right? Like, he played against Washington, I believe, and he looked really good. So we feel a little more confident if Matt Parrott gets put in the starting lineup, and we're all saying he should start at right tackle from now on. With Shane Lemieux, we haven't seen play at all.
Right.
We saw him play in training camp, but that doesn't count. And we've seen him play a few snaps at fullback in the regular season. We haven't seen him actually play any reps against NFL players on the offensive line. So I'm skeptical of trading Kevin Zeitler for that reason. I feel like the offensive line, as bad as it is, it could potentially get worse, but I do think that the benefits of gaining an extra asset and getting valuable playing time and film on Shane Lemieux heading into this next offseason, I think that is more important than salvaging what's left of this offensive line. So I am for the trade if it comes at the right price.
Right. So I could see both of it. I think I'd be happy either way. And the reason is he's going to count $14.5 million against the cap next year, right? With that being said, if Shane Lemieux doesn't pan out, they're right back where they started, and they have to sign another guy for a ton of money. You might as well just keep Zeitler. This is his worst season to date, and I'll give you a good reason why. Cam Fleming and Nick Gates are absolute garbage. Nick Gates is improving, but he's still bad. He's gone from really bad to just bad. And he's working his way up to.
I still believe in him though. I still believe.
No,
in
I
him.
do too. I do too. It's his first year.
Exactly.
Agreed. It's his first year at center. I understand the whole concept that you need to give him time. So I'm willing to give him that time. I'm willing to give him this season. But that isn't helping Kevin Zeitler. I get why he's having a bad year. And let me tell you another additional reason why. Cam Fleming has been an absolute liability. This year, he has an offensive total grade of 52.9, 47.2 pass blocking, 57.8 run blocking. The last 2 weeks have been an absolute joke for him. Like 29 graded pass blocking reps last week against Philly. That's embarrassing. Now let me give you a little bit more insight. We got rid of Mike Remmers for him, and Mike Remmers is actually having a very good year this year. 81.7 pass blocking, 55.8 run blocking. He would have been a much better option at right tackle for us if we would have just kept him. Now he's on the Chiefs and he's starting. So that's important to know. And last year with the Giants at right tackle, he graded out at 64, and he had about a 70 pass blocking grade and 55 run blocking grade. He's about average in run blocking, a little bit above average in pass blocking, and Cam Fleming has been a disaster for us across the board. And what do you expect from Kevin Zeitler when your right tackle and center are both terrible? You can't expect him to play well when he has zero help and they're on the wrong page every game, right? So
he's been playing as good as he possibly can is the thing.
Exactly. He's playing as good as he possibly can, and if you put Shane Lemieux in there, you're just dooming Daniel Jones. You're putting Daniel Jones in a position where this might hurt his progression.
But is he not already doomed? Like behind the current offensive line, it's already bad. I think we've seen improvement from the offensive line, but if we're talking about,
but listen.
Like, how much worse can it possibly get, though, is my thing. Like, how much worse can that offensive line possibly get? Want me to tell you how much
worse it could get? Go look at Sam Darnold. That's how much worse it could possibly get. That's how bad it could look. Sam Darnold, if you watch the Jets play, it's like literally watching Swiss cheese. You know,
Sam Darnold has a better left tackle than us right now, so.
He was also injured, though, for a couple weeks. So, but I agree with you. He has a better left tackle, but the interior of that line is so bad that if you replace Kevin Zeitler with Shane Lemieux and you already have a bad center and you already have a bad right tackle, DJ's not going to be able to throw the ball. He's going to get injured. He's going to have to run. He's going to get hit. You know, you're just putting your hopefully your franchise quarterback in a really bad position, and for what? To gather more draft picks for a pick that might not even pan out. You know,
right? But what if Shane Lemieux steps in and is an excellent rookie guard? Like, what if he's really good and he plays above average?
Well, in that case, you never know. For sure do it. But
so are you necessarily dooming him? Is my question. I don't know if you are necessarily dooming him.
Okay. So this is what I have to say about that. If we don't see Shane Lemieux before the deadline next Tuesday, I am making the assumption that he's going to be bad because every single offensive lineman that we've drafted and we have is bad. Okay?
Why would it be any different? Parrott. Do not disrespect Matt Parrott.
You have to assume that everyone's bad at this point because Gettleman has not been able to figure this thing out yet, and every player that we have is bad except for Zeitler. Matt
Parrott is good.
I'll give you Matt Parrott has shown some good promise in some areas, but Shane Lemieux we haven't even seen any reps from. So how can we possibly just imagine and predict probability-wise from what we've seen that he's going to be good?
Well, I think part of what you're saying is true. Like, we have to assume that they're all bad, right? Because they're all rookies and they're all learning the game and they're all developing.
Right.
So even Matt Parrott, as much as I'm a fanboy of his and I completely stan that man, he still is bad, because he's young and he's going to make a ton of mistakes when he goes out there. He might play some solid reps and he'll probably have some where he looks horrific. And I think it's the same thing with Andrew Thomas. Sometimes he looks like a beast in run blocking, and then other times he just cannot stop anybody in pass protection, right? So he is bad right now, but they're all young guys who are developing. And so, yeah, Shane Lemieux probably will step in and be bad, but the thing is, Andrew Thomas is learning from those mistakes that he's making, and he's going to be better by the end of the season, hopefully, right? Shane Lemieux could get that same experience. He could go in there, be bad for a week or two, start to improve, and then hopefully by the end of the year, once he has 8 games under his belt as a professional, maybe he's actually being molded into a good player, and next offseason and next season, he's ready to be a full-time starter, and he's actually good now. He goes from bad to good. That's possible, but I think the only way that the problem is, right, you go into the draft, and the Giants have to either plan the draft or free agency, and they either have to plan to find a new offensive guard, or they have to know what they have in Shane Lemieux. And the only way you know is if you get 8 weeks of film to break him down throughout the end of the season.
Look, the only way that I'm trading Kevin Zeitler is if this happens. They take Cam Fleming completely out of the lineup. They put Parrott at right tackle and Lemieux at right guard. If you're gonna blow shit up, blow it up. If you're gonna make a big trade like that and get rid of your best offensive lineman on a bad offensive line, you might as well go 100%.
Could you
Just take it all the
imagine?
way.
Could you imagine if they're starting 3 rookies on the offensive line at the same time, and then a center who's never played
Gates
center
is pretty much a
before?
rookie. Gates is pretty
That's
much a rookie. We're already doing pretty much. We already
I
have
mean,
two of them.
we would definitely have the youngest offensive line in the NFL. So
You might as well just go all the way, though. Like you
no,
might
I
as well
agree.
just
I
do it.
agree. Yeah, if you're gonna put Lemieux in, you put Parrott in as well. You just put them both
Yeah.
in.
There's no point in holding Cam Fleming out there if you're going to blow things up like that. Now, what is the most you think you get for Zeitler, though? Because I'm on the fence about his value. I think maximum at this point, and his contract, he has 1 year left on his deal. Maybe you're looking at a third rounder or a fourth rounder.
I'm more optimistic about the Zeitler trade because if you look around the league, offensive linemen, they're
Or
hard
dime
to
a dozen.
find. They're rare.
Yeah.
They're hard to find, and
He's elite. When on a good team, he's
he
very
is
good.
good. He is good. So I feel like you can trade him for somewhat of a premium, at least a third, and maybe one of those competitive teams. You mentioned the Chiefs last time we were on the podcast, and I thought that was like a really good idea because the Chiefs, they've had a revolving door in their offensive line as well. Obviously, their guard opted out of the season. Their starting offensive guard opted out of the season because of COVID. So
Yeah.
if you put Kevin Zeitler on that offensive line, I think the Chiefs like just go from amazing to like I don't even know what
Unbelievable.
adjective you could
Unstoppable.
put above what they already are because they're already so good, right? Their offense is that good already.
I could see him on
So
Dallas, unfortunately. He would
yeah,
fit
but
really
there
well in
wouldn't. I don't
Dallas.
think there'd be an interdivision trade.
They'll never do that, but I
Yeah.
could just see him in a Dallas jersey.
Right, but if he goes to the Chiefs though, the Chiefs, why wouldn't they want to give up a late second round pick? They're gonna have like a 30 to 32nd overall pick in the second round. Why not?
Right.
Your offensive line is just solidified there for the long stretch. So I do think that there is a scenario where they get a second round pick, at least a third round pick though. I think that's
Maybe if they
they'll
get a
definitely
second,
get
they're
a
gonna have to
third.
give 2 players. They're gonna have to give 2 players or another pick to get a second rounder for him, in my opinion.
Maybe.
Because his contract,
I mean, that makes
again, they're
sense.
gonna have to pay him $14.5 million next year. No team
Mhm.
wants to do that. They'd rather just draft a guy with that pick. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess I agree with that too. That makes sense. But
I can see a third though as the max that we get for Kevin Zeitler. Now, the only way again that I'm trading him is if we see Shane Lemieux this week and we see some decent reps and we're convinced that it's worth developing him now.
well, you also have to think that we don't see practice and we don't see the behind the scenes, and it's possible. It's
It
not
doesn't
likely,
translate
but
all
it's
the time, though.
possible.
Look at Thomas.
I mean, it never translates really, but it's possible that the
Exactly.
Giants are extremely impressed with what they've seen in Shane Lemieux, and they are
Right.
eager to get him in the lineup. That's possible.
I'm sure they are.
And that
Well,
could
Colombo
be-
said it today. He said
Right.
it today. We want to get him in some more reps,
Mhm.
and I
Yeah.
imagine this is the week to do it because they know they're going to get crapped on. You
Right.
might as well go out and try and get some reps against really talented players to really see what the. That's how you expose weaknesses, by the way. You can really tell what a player's weaknesses are if you play them against elite talent, because the elite talent will find ways to exploit you in every which way. You can really find out what Shane Lemieux's bad at by playing him against the Tampa Bay Bucks.
That's true. That's a good point. But I also like the fact that Kevin Zeitler is like on the trade block has my wheels turning. Like, why is he on the trade block? Are the Giants ready to put Shane Lemieux in? Is Shane Lemieux
That's
ready?
the question.
So,
Oh,
I
no,
guess
but not
I mean
even
there's
that.
more
They're
context that
giving
we're
up,
not
though.
privy to.
That is
That's
also an
also
indication
true.
of waving the white flag. That's
That's true.
a flag waving move if you sell on Zeitler, and
Mhm.
at
That's
this
true.
point, I'm not opposed because I believe that is the direction they're going is that Shane Lemieux should be the future. And let me remind you, what they're doing with Shane Lemieux is what they should have done with Andrew Thomas. Okay, Nate Solder should have started the season at left tackle. I think Andrew Thomas started too early.
Well, he opted out.
he's
So
Exactly. You had no choice but to start Thomas, but I really do believe that he wouldn't have started the season. I think he would have learned for a few weeks and learned the technique because he's been. If you saw some of the reports earlier this week, Joe Thomas, a perennial Pro Bowler for the Browns, said literally that he
All-Pro.
was a perennial All-Pro guy for the Browns, the offensive tackle, is like Andrew Thomas was the most risky pick. He essentially has all the athletic, tangible traits that you want to see in a player. He just doesn't have the technique down. He isn't connected with his hands and his feet. There's a lot of miscommunications. And then another offensive a line coach from the Cincinnati Bengals and Cowboys, Paul Alexander, was saying that his technique from Georgia compared to now is like completely different.
right.
They ruined it. He's like, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus because he's friends with Mark Colombo, but he's like, whatever is happening there, they are completely destroying his technique. or he's fallen into some really bad habits, like lunging out of his position. He's like punching people like he has machine gun hands. He's always been really good as using his hands to corral and guide and mirror pass rushers. That's always what he's been good at. And then now he's punching and he's lunging and his shoulders are over his feet and he's off balance and he's getting beat inside. There's a lot of different things that are happening that's not something that we expected from Andrew Thomas and we're seeing now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. In Georgia, he was maybe the most technically sound offensive tackle prospect, especially with the way that his hip fluidity and his sets and his kick slides. He was always in position, and his problem usually was the hand placement, which is not surprising that we're seeing that be a problem in the NFL, but that was usually the problem at Georgia. But everything else was pretty sound. He was very technically sound. So it is really jarring to see him step into the league and his technique has completely changed. It's been altered and it's not the same and it's not effective at all. And it makes you ponder, like, is it Mark Colombo? Like, I don't know what it is. It makes you think.
I don't think it is though, because Colombo was so
I don't think
honest.
so either.
He was so honest about what's going on. He was like, he's overshooting his assignments. His shoulders are over his feet. He's off balance. He pretty much described exactly what Paul Alexander and Joe Thomas said. And then he's like, we're trying to fix it. We're trying to fix it. We're not doing this to him. Here's what I think is happening, okay? I think that they're trying to fix it, throughout the week. And then he goes into the games, and teams are exploiting and are beating him on the inside. Those elite pass rushers that he's facing off against pretty much weekly are literally attacking that weakness over and over and over again. And they're just resetting him. You know what I mean? Like, he's not gaining enough good reps to break the trend, to break the habit. He's getting beat so consistently every week by the same things. I just don't think he's ready. He needs a couple weeks off. I think the bye week's going to do him very well. I think he's going to come back a lot better after the bye because he's going to have some time to really like just grind out that weakness and really go into it with stronger technique. But think about like all the pass rushers he's had to face off against. It's really it's hard to say. Bud Dupree.
That was week one.
You have Khalil Mack, Robert Quinn. Who they have? Who do the Eagles have last week? I remember who that. They had a lot of injuries.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But then you have, Chase Young, and you have Montez Sweat.
Yeah.
DeMarcus
Sweat
Lawrence.
got the best of him a couple times.
Alden Smith. A lot of good players, man.
Was wreaking havoc out there.
Exactly. So he hasn't had a break, and now he has Shaquille Barrett and JPP. JPP will be on against right tackle, but Shaquille Barrett is one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. We have a very, very big matchup this week, and it's going to tell us a lot about Andrew Thomas going into the bye week and what he needs to correct. We already know a lot of it, but it's going to reaffirm, I think, because Shaquille Barrett's going to absolutely torch him. They have one of the best. Todd Bowles and that defense is unbelievable, and that's kind of where I want to dive into some of this Tampa Bay, what we are facing off against in Week 8. Let me give you an idea right now. Defensively, they are allowing the third least points in the game at 20.3. So, well, hold on a second. I might be off on that one. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The eighth. Okay, so they're allowing the eighth least points in the game, and the Giants are allowing the 14th. So two pretty decent defenses, but Tampa is far better in terms of rushing yards. They're the number one rush defense in the league. So you can already say Wayne Gallman and Devonta Freeman are done. If you're starting them in fantasy, God bless you. Passing yards, they're also very, very good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're ninth in passing yards allowed per game. And then total yards allowed per game, they're third. So that's defensive. They're pretty much top 10 across the board, if not top 5. That is a bad matchup for an offense, mind you, that of the Giants is currently averaging 17.4 points per game and ranks second to the last behind Washington and just above the Jets at 12.1, which is actually like Pee Wee level football. But now we're looking at Tampa's offense. Tampa's offense is
real quickly, I want to point out on the Buccaneers defense, you look at that linebacking core, and I think that the key player that you want to point out, Levante David is amazing, right? But the Buccaneers are having a rising star about to emerge. He has been emerging over the past couple weeks. Devin White, kid out of LSU, who likes to ride horses. That guy has been a beast. He is really making his name and his presence felt. in the league. He is first in total pressures from linebackers with 17,
Hmm.
and he is first in total sacks from linebackers with 4. He's been really active. He's super athletic, and he's definitely a guy that you're going to want to keep an eye on with Daniel Jones throwing across the middle of the field. Him and Levante David, they're both really fast and rangy, and they can cover a lot of ground. So Daniel Jones is going to have to be careful when throwing in their directions.
Yeah. And guess who is on their cornerback squad now? And I kind of just figured this one out. Ross Cockrell. Ross Cockrell.
I didn't
He's
know
on
that
their
he signed
cornerback
there.
squad.
I missed that news.
Exactly. He signed to their practice squad. They elevated him, and what does that tell you? That he was probably about to sign with the Giants, and Tampa was like, "We're interested in you," and he was like, "Screw the Giants. I'm going to go to a Super Bowl contending team." That's probably what happened. I would do the same thing. Why would you not go to Tampa where it's warmer? First of all, and second of all, why wouldn't you go to a team that has Tom Brady and one of the most elite offenses in the NFL plus defenses? It's hands down. I would have done the same thing. It's either you're winning or you're losing. Even if it's less money, he hasn't been able to win like that. So I would do the same thing. They also have Jamel Dean, one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL right now. You can pretty much say goodbye to Sterling Shepard or Darius Slayton. One of them is going to be completely taken out. Who else do they have? Steve McClendon, they just got from the Jets. Patrick O'Connor, they have Adama Sue. Whatever. He is one of the best defensive guys against the run in the league. So that's also Ali Marpet. He's their guard. I like his name, though. Pretty good. Levante David, Kevin Minter, Devin White. I mean,
it's a good team.
Shaquille
And,
Barrett, Quentin Bell.
You got to mention the quarterback position, man. I mean, Tom Brady is playing at an MVP level right now. He has been going off. He had 4 touchdown passes last week. Here's a crazy statistic that I saw. And he did this twice this year. Last week against the Raiders, Tom Brady threw 21 first down passes.
Holy crap.
Is that not insane? And he did that in week 4 as well against Chicago. He threw 20. The other weeks it's been 11 to 9 and 10, or 12 was the other high. But 21 first down passes, that's just like, that's a mind-boggling stat to me. That is mind-boggling.
One who's playing really well. I wanted the Giants to draft him, Antoine Winfield Jr.
Yeah, he has been playing well.
He's been killing me. His interception, 4 passes defended, a fumble, 37 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 quarterback hits. Allowed a couple touchdowns, but overall, the guy's been very, very good against the run. He can move around the field, and he looks like a replica of his dad, a direct replica. He's a rookie too, so he's only going to get better. Xavier McKinney needs to get back.
He'll be back soon.
I like McKinney. I love McKinney. Don't get me wrong, but we haven't seen him play yet. Like Winfield is showing that he's going to be a good player. So I do like to see these young guys looking really good. But man, the Bucs across the board are good. I would be surprised if we scored more than 12 points, to be honest with you.
That's it? Just 12?
Have you seen this defense, man? What are you supposed to do?
Defense is good. I know. But I will give credit to Jason Garrett. We've all been really harping on him throughout the year. His offensive scheme has really improved over the last 2 weeks. It's gotten better. So I do think that we'll get some points. Really since the Dallas game. So over the last 3 weeks, I think that Jason Garrett has really improved.
And what have we seen that's different from him, do you think?
I definitely have seen more motion, and I've seen more Daniel Jones, really. I've seen more Daniel Jones. He's really been allowing Daniel Jones to command the offense more, and I think that's been the big key.
And who is the big difference maker from last week?
Well, in the negative way, it's Evan Engram, but it's Sterling Shepard. Yes, Sterling Shepard in the positive way.
Sterling Shepard is our red zone phenom. And you saw his route last week. Inside technique they knew that the Eagles, if you remember the play, they knew that the Eagles like to swap. So they ran Sterling Shepard underneath and then cut him back towards the middle, got the inside technique and scored that touchdown. He had 8 touchdowns in his rookie season. The Giants just haven't found a ways to get him that open the last couple of years. But I think now that he's back in the lineup, we're going to see once the Giants get into the red zone, Shepard is going to be a focal point there. And I'm really excited because he's one of the best route runners in the league, especially from the slot. So I'm so happy that we have him back.
He ran a whip route on a 3rd and 7, I think, earlier in the game. I want to say the second quarter on the right side. And he goes in, and he put the hardest pivot on the cornerback and then just burst to the sideline. Daniel Jones got the ball, and he was able to run after the catch and pick up the first down. That route was filthy, and it was something that I haven't seen out of Giants receivers in far too long. and I missed it because I've said this before on this podcast. The wide receiver position is by far my favorite position to watch, just because of the way that some of these professionals run their routes is such an art form, and it's so beautiful to watch. And Sterling Shepard is a prime example of that with the way that he runs, especially those short intermediate routes. He is just a freaking whiz. He's a killer down there, and that was fun to watch. And I'm excited to see him, expand this offense further next week.
Yeah, the whip routes. He's so good with those little whip routes where he like goes inside and breaks to the outside. Honestly, I'm so happy that we have him back in the offensive in the unit, just because, when you only have Darius Slayton back there, it's what else can you do? CJ Board's out, Damian Ratley's gone. We have Corey Coleman and we have Austin Mack, and then have Evan Ingram, who couldn't catch a pass to save his life. So, and that's another thing. Before we go into some questions we have from Twitter. What are you thinking about Evan Ingram right now? They're saying he's not on the trade block. Teams are calling, and they're saying he's not available. And it's one of those things that I get, but I also really don't get, because when you're expected to be a very talented playmaker, they consider him to be their biggest threat on offense. But when you throw him the ball on third down at the end of the game to seal the game, and he drops the ball because he has stones for hands. How do you continue to rely on someone that you just can't trust? And I compiled a video of all of his targets from this season. I'm going to post it on YouTube for you guys to watch. And I promise you're going to see a bunch of things.
Video of 2020.
Oh no, it is pretty bad, but you're going to see a few things, okay? The first thing is that you're going to see Daniel Jones looks like absolute trash the first 4 games of the season. He makes some very bad reads, very bad throws. Second thing you're going to see is that Evan Engram is responsible for at least, I think, 4 of 7 of Daniel Jones' interceptions. Whether he slips or drops the ball or runs a bad route, he just completely is at fault for them. The third thing is that the guy just can't catch. He really just can't catch. But if you can get him into space, he's very, very talented. If you can get the ball in his hands uncontested, he's a very, very good player. But you could say that about any freaking wide receiver in the NFL. If you get him into 10 yards of space and just get the ball in his hands, he can probably pick up some yards for you. That's the problem with Evan Engram. He can't catch the ball when he's contested because he doesn't have the body frame, right? He doesn't have the frame to, box people out, especially linebackers and even cornerbacks who are more shifty. He can't box them out with his smaller frame, so he actually is not good at catching the ball under duress. And I just don't think he's good enough of a route runner. A lot of the times I see linebackers running routes for him. I saw it a bunch of times. 2 of his interceptions. One of them, I forget what team it was. Maybe the Bears. The linebacker just ran the route for him. Which means
that was against
2 things.
The 49ers, I believe.
The 49ers. And so on one side, was it against Fred Warner maybe that got that interception?
Yep.
So there's 2 things. One of them is that he's not selling his route hard enough, and 2 is that Daniel Jones should have never thrown that ball. Right? Those are the 2 things that I extract from that. But Evan Engram, I think they should be selling on, because if he's only hurting your team with interceptions and drops and bad routes and ruining games for you, what value does he really have? He's not a first round value, that's for sure.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm definitely open to trading Evan Engram, and I actually kind of want them to do it at this point. I'll throw out a statistic. He has 4 drops on the season. That's a 13.3% drop rate. That means he's dropped 13% of his catchable passes, which is obviously not a good number. So he's not reliable. He's athletic, but they're not using him properly, and he's really not been a factor in any of the Giants games unless he's dropping a pass or causing an interception, which is all negative. But I will say, if the asking price or the predicted sale price is about a 3rd-round pick, right? They said that they can get a 3rd or 4th-round pick for Evan Engram, which I think is pretty solid if you get a 3rd-round pick. But I will say, devil's advocate here, I saw Willie Receipts. He did reply to one of your tweets, and he said something that I kind of agreed with. He said, Evan Engram really is one of those special playmakers if you use him properly, right? Like, if he's molded in the right way, he could be one of those special playmakers. We saw it in his rookie season, whatever, right? Are you going to be able to find a player like that in the 3rd round? Are you going to be able to find a player, not even like talent production level, but just look at the athletic ability and the raw ability that Evan Engram has? You can't find the guy with that athletic ability in the third round. That's not like, you know what I mean? They're third round prospects. It's rare to find somebody like that.
I want to argue against that though. I want to argue against that
Go
saying
for it. I'd like to hear it. I'm just playing
he's a
devil's
one.
advocate. I'm ready to trade
Yeah, no,
the guy.
absolutely not. I want to argue against that because he's a one-tool player, right? He barely pass blocks. When he does, he chips and he runs out. He maybe has 1 to 4 or 5 pass blocking snaps a game, right? His main job is run blocking as a tight end, is run blocking and being a wide receiver. He's one of the worst run blocking tight ends in the NFL. So you can already say his half of his value is already out the window, gone. Capiche, boosh, blah blah. He's gone. It's his value is already slashed in half. And then you look at him as the one tool player that he is. He is a receiving tight end, and that is what he's meant to do. Even when the Giants get him in space, he drops the ball. Even when the Giants get him in space, he drops the ball. So what exactly is his value if he's a receiving tight end who has all the athleticism in the world but can't catch? And he can't. Yeah. That's why they're running. By the way, that's why they're doing so many freaking end arounds with him, because they have to make sure that he doesn't drop it. Yeah. Right? If they can get the ball in his hands, he can make stuff happen. The problem is he fumbled one of the end arounds. He can't even catch the freaking end around. What do you do with a player who literally just can't do shit?
Here's the thing, right? You look at that third down drop. He should have caught that. He was right in his hands. But if you look at the route and the release off the line of scrimmage, tight ends don't do that. That was
gorgeous.
nasty.
It was gorgeous.
The release off the line of scrimmage was perfect, and he ran it to where he wasn't too far to the sideline. He could catch it and stay in bounds. It was a perfect route. He got open, but then he dropped
route, by the way.
He dropped it.
Was more of a corner route.
It was more of a corner route. It was a fade. It was kind of like almost like a wheel because it was an outside release. So it was a fade up the left sideline, but the release off the line of scrimmage, he used the outside release, and he just toasted the cornerback that was guarding him, which you don't see tight ends do. He's so fast, and he's so quick and agile, and that was really impressive. But it doesn't matter if you can't catch the football. It doesn't matter. But here's my thing with Evan Engram, right? If you took him out of the Giants lineup and you plugged him in as the starter for the Carolina Panthers, I think that he's going on to be a top 10 tight end for the rest of the year. Joe Brady and that offense, the things that they've been doing, has been super impressive. Look at how much they're getting out of Robbie Anderson right now, and Curtis Samuel, and DJ Moore is slowly turning into an elite wide receiver. That team and the way that they're building that offense is amazing. All they need is they need a tight end. They just need a tight end. I think
that's what they're scared of, though. That's what the Giants are scared of. They're scared of giving him away and him turning into a top 10 player. But the thing is, if you don't know how to use him, you might as well do that.
That's what I'm saying.
If you're gonna destroy him and you're not gonna use him correctly, you might as well sell him for value and allocate that toward a position of weakness. Because at this point,
how I feel.
Jason Garrett doesn't know how to use him just yet. I think he's working his way into understanding, because we're seeing more streak routes, we're seeing more deep passes. Alarming statistic alert: Engram only has 20-plus two 20-plus yard receptions this year through 7 weeks, right? Yeah. 2 20-yard receptions. It would have been 3 if not for his drop. His main purpose is to do that. It's to run streak routes, be aggressive, get up and make those catches like a basketball player. That is what he should be doing.
Well, here's my thing, right? And I know I said this to you in a text the other day. There's not been a lot of drag routes for Evan Engram. And I think that's really what you think about, getting him in space, and getting him on the move. You think about the Tampa game last year. He took basically a shallow crosser, got it, hit the sideline, and was gone for 75 yards in a touchdown.
And that block by Shepard on the edge.
Second half. Yes, okay.
Oh, man.
Shepard is one of the best blocking receivers in the NFL. We got to give him props there. Shepard does so much for this offense. It's unbelievable. He keeps them afloat.
When he's out, it's terrible.
Sometimes. Yeah, you got to love Sterling Shepard, man. But Evan Engram needs more of those shallow crossers and those drag routes where he can get it in space. When they sit back in their soft zone and you have someone open underneath, and it's just Engram running that 40-yard dash, and he gets the ball in stride, he can just hit go full speed, hit the sideline, and make a big gain. But I just don't think that we've seen that enough. We see him do the flat routes and you can't really get a full head of steam when you're running a flat route and you only have a sideline and like a hash marker to work with. So you've got a quarter of the field. And then with the stick routes that he runs all the time, those short hook routes, you can't really get him in speed because he's got to run up and then turn around, and then once he catches it, he has to accelerate. But by that time, you've already got somebody closing on him. But if you just have him do those drag routes with the shallow crossers, you hit him in stride. He's already going at full speed. He's hard to catch, So I want to see Jason Garrett even though we did sing his praises and say that he's doing a better job, I do want to see him use Evan Engram better. I think we all do, and I think drag routes are the first key to success with Evan Engram.
Yeah, and seeing the gradual improvement of this offense tells me a couple things. It's one that they were really missing Sterling Shepard, and they're really missing Saquon Barkley. It looked like they were installing base concepts, and they just didn't have the talent around DJ and the offensive line. They just didn't have the time in the pocket to really install everything the way that they wanted to.
Is that an indictment on Daniel Jones that it took them that long to install the offense? Do you think that it?
I think it's more of an indictment on the offensive line. I think it's more of an indictment on the offensive line and the receivers. Because
I agree.
Because the offensive line, if you don't have the time in the pocket, how can you actually expect your receivers to run full routes? So recall this. Back in 2017 when we had Ben McAdoo, you had OBJ running slants, and then that's basically all the offense was. Because Eli Manning had the fastest, release time in the NFL at the time, in that year. I'm pretty sure it was 2017. Or maybe it was 2016.
16.
Yeah. So when your offensive line is so bad, you literally have to rip out half of your playbook because you can't let routes develop. You have to you're pretty much working out of the shotgun on plays that you should be working out of the pistol. You know what I mean? You really just can't operate in the way you want to. Jason Garrett has 10 years of experience. There's no way you're going to tell me that he doesn't have more than what we've seen. The problem is he doesn't have the talent to actually access the portions of his playbook that he wants to. And I think that as this team gets better and better and better, we'll see that. Now, how much better they're going to get by the end of the season, that's to be seen. We'll see. It really depends on the offensive line and the receiver staying healthy. If they can get this offensive line to an average level next year and they go out and sign Allen Robinson, they draft a really talented receiver, we're going to see a different offense altogether. Then you have Saquon back too, and DJ in his second year in the same scheme. They're not going to fire Jason Garrett after this season. Mark my words, because it would just be resetting the whole thing all over again. They're going to give him at least 2 years to get this thing up to a point where it's average.
Yeah, I mean, I would be in favor of moving on from Garrett after 1 year, but the thing is, that does create quite a lot of issues for Daniel Jones. Like we talk about Josh Rosen and how he had to go through offensive coordinator after offensive coordinator after offensive coordinator, right? Do we really want to put Daniel Jones through that same thing? Probably not. You probably, as much as we might be disgruntled by Jason Garrett's offense through these first 7 weeks, you probably are going to want to just stick it out and have Daniel Jones at least get another year of experience underneath it, because maybe he can elevate this offense. Even if it's bad, maybe he can carry it and make it good. Or at the very least, just give him some continuity going into next year so he's more comfortable if you want to switch playbooks to the following year,
Yeah, I know. That's completely fair. Moving on to our Twitter little mailbag today. Just asked before we started the pod just to get some more questions in. And this one's from New York Giants and CFC Dilla Patel. He has 2 questions, both regarding the O-line. Mark Colombo wants to get Shane Lemieux more snaps. So does this hint that a Zeitler exit via trade is imminent? So we talked about this earlier. What I will say is I don't think it's imminent. I think that getting Lemieux snaps is more of a let's see what we have. If he looks good, then Zeitler becomes more trade worthy. That's how I feel about it. They're not just going to take Lemieux, see a bunch of snaps, be like, okay, he playing like crap. That means we should trade Zeitler. I don't think that's how it's going to work. And Anthony, I'll let you answer these in order. I'm going to answer the second one. Andrew Thomas struggling big time at the moment. Technique and hand placements all over the place. Is there a way he can quickly fix that? Personally, there's no easy fix to that because it's been happening every single week. I think that over the bye, they're going to really work on working those kinks out of his game and hopefully return against, was it the Eagles after the bye again? Or Washington? Do you remember?
I believe it's Washington.
Okay, so let's say it's Washington. It'll be another tough task against Chase Young and Montez Sweat. So hopefully, he comes back and he's feeling more strong about his technique. That's all you can hope for at this point. What we're hearing from all these different professionals and analysts is that he doesn't look anything like he did at Georgia. And that's my biggest concern personally. Hopefully Mark Colombo can get this and the muscle memory can stick, but he's being exploited weekly. Now, Anthony, you can go ahead and answer the Lemieux question and Andrew Thomas.
Yeah, I don't think that a Zeitler trade is necessarily imminent, but I do think it's something that's on the table for the Giants, and I think that even Mark Colombo and everybody else is aware of that, and probably Kevin Zeitler is aware as well. But I do think that him saying he wants to see Shane Lemieux get more snaps is hinting, not necessarily at the Zeitler trade, but hinting at the fact that we will probably see Lemieux play at least a series, a drive, maybe two, tops three on Monday night, which I'm all for. I would like to see that. And then Andrew Thomas struggling. You mentioned the technique and hand placement. Hand placement has been a problem for him since college. He's struggled with that in the past. So that's something that I was expecting him to try and learn and improve on when he got to the NFL. But then the rest of his technique just magically fell apart once he got to the league, which is super concerning and really confusing, right? So no, I don't think that there is a quick fix. There's no quick fix for this. It's going to probably take the rest of the season to fix Andrew Thomas. He's got to basically, he had his technique down in college, and then it seems like he tried to learn some new technique and it hasn't worked. So he's got to relearn that, or he's got to relearn the old one. He's a young offensive lineman who's just going to struggle until he doesn't. So it's not going to be a quick fix. I think Mark Colombo is going to do everything he can to make it a quick fix. But I do think that we're probably going to be looking at some more struggles throughout the rest of the year. And then hopefully by the end of the year, we see him start to emerge and evolve into a solid player.
Yeah, I mean, I always expected him to be a little rocky this year. I think next year we'll see the jump that we hope to see, but this year I think it'll be pretty rocky the whole time. I don't think he's going to suddenly turn into an amazing caliber tackle. If you're looking over at Jedrick Wills, we'll see improvement, but we're not going to see suddenly good to great level play. It'll maybe, I'm hoping we get to average at best. That's what I'm hoping for. Because then you can go somewhere from average. You can go up from average. That's what the goal is now. But on to our next question, Peter Andrew James. Assuming Jones is still quarterback 1 next season, what's our greatest need for the draft? That's a very good question.
That's a great question.
A very good question, because you could go many different ways. We've been spending way too many draft picks on the offensive side of the ball. It's about time we gave one to the defense. What I will say is that if you have a guy like Jamar Chase on the board and you're confident in Andrew Thomas, and you take Solder and put him at right tackle, use Parrott as that swing just in case for injuries, which I'm totally fine with doing that, and then you just let Parrott develop, learn, and then take over for Solder when he leaves. If you feel comfortable with that, you can go with Jamar Chase, and he's a guy that can beat any cornerback in the NFL. He's a guy that makes your offense a 25-point offense per game instead of a 17-point offense per game. You know what I mean? He's a electric playmaker. Pairing him with Sterling Shepard, if they keep Evan Ingram, you have Darius Slayton too. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm pretty happy with that. But then you have Penei Sewell. If you're happy with Andrew Jones, no need to go that route at all. And we've already spent a first round, 4th overall pick on Andrew Thomas. So getting Sewell is definitely a question mark. But he is generational talent. We've talked about this on previous episodes. Hard to pass. Jamar Chase, I would also put him and categorize him as a generational wide receiver based on his production and what he's done. Now, then you have Micah Parsons, who's a linebacker who pairs up with Blake Martinez. I don't think they go that route because they need a pass rusher more than they do another middle linebacker.
Well, yeah, I mean, but he will provide that pass coverage. He can blitz. I don't know. He'd be a special player.
He's like a Devin White kind of.
If you're looking at the defensive side of the ball, it's him or Gregory Rousseau are those top 2 prospects, unless you're looking in the secondary and you want to get that Alabama cornerback, Patrick Surtain.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Giants are going to be getting a lot of money back. Currently, they have $9 million in cap space, right? $9 million in cap space.
It should go up to about 40 by the end of by the offseason.
So they're going to have plenty of room. They could theoretically go out and sign Yannick Ngakoue, who had 5 sacks through 6 weeks, and he was just traded. You could do it, though. He's a perfect offensive outside linebacker for the scheme. He does fit it very well.
He does, but, we'll see. I'm not so confident that the Giants are going to go out there and spend big in free agency.
It only happens if they get rid of Leonard Williams, in my opinion. That's the only way it happens.
Yeah, because that man is going to eat quite a lot of our salary cap space. So, I don't know. I want to officially answer this question, though. So, our greatest need in the draft, I think our greatest need on this team, I think it's a little soon to say because we got to see the offensive tackle positions and how those pan out for the rest of the season. If Andrew Thomas starts to play better, and then if Matt Parrott goes in the lineup and looks really good, you probably don't draft Penei Sewell, right? Just depending on how those two play. But I think that if you look at the roster, the biggest weakness is cornerback too. I think Ryan Lewis is okay. but he's still below average. Like cornerback 2 has been a liability for 7 weeks, and it was a liability last year too. It is just a problem that the Giants need to solve. So I do think that is probably our biggest need heading into the draft, and probably you would see them target a cornerback in at least the second round, probably strongly consider it in the first round with the Alabama kid, like I was mentioning. But I want to say Jamar Chase in the first round. I am one of those people that's all for that because I look at the way that a wide receiver can change an offense. Look at the way Stephon Diggs changed the Buffalo Bills. Look at the way that Michael Thomas has, they've really felt that absence in New Orleans without Michael Thomas. And you look around the league, look at how the Texans have really felt the absence of DeAndre Hopkins and how DeAndre Hopkins has completely changed the Cardinals' offense and turn them into low-key Super Bowl contenders or Super Bowl hopefuls at least, right? So the wide receiver position, when you have a primary number one guy who could just draw double teams, look at the way that it expands your offense. And I'm going to go back to this prime example because I always do whenever I have this conversation. Plaxico Burress. All Giants fans know this story. He was dominant in 2008. The Giants were Super Bowl favorites in 2008. They were 10-1 or 11-1? I think they were 10-1 and they finished the year 11-5, right? Once he left the lineup, their offense was horrible. They could not move the ball. Brandon Jacobs even said it. They could not even run the ball because people knew what they were going to do, and no one was afraid of their passing attack without Plaxico Burress in the lineup. He did that much to open up and then close up their offense once he had to leave the lineup. So imagine just Jamar Chase. Imagine we still had Odell Beckham Jr. in this lineup. What it would do for Darius Slayton with one-on-ones.
100%.
What it would do for Sterling Shepard with one-on-ones.
Saquon.
You just got to think for Saquon in the passing game, in the running game too, when they're just keying in on their. So, I said Odell, but imagine that's Jamar Chase. It's the same principle. When they're keying in on that guy, it's just opening up everything for this offense. It's making life easier for your quarterback. And so I am one of those guys who's all for getting that elite wide receiver early on in the draft. I'm all for that. But I definitely think that there are other positions that you got to consider too. And so cornerback and offensive tackle and wide receiver, those are my top 3 that I'm looking at as long as Daniel Jones is still QB1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's reasonable. I would say I'm in the same boat. We still have a little while to go before then, but it seems like the offense still needs a significant help, and the defense also needs a cornerback too, a pass rusher, another linebacker to pair if they don't completely trust Tay Crowder. There's a long way to go, a lot left of football to play before we really know what this team is going to look like next year, or where they're going to go with it. But the last question for you guys, if we bring a new GM in, what are the chances DJ stays our quarterback through next year? If we bring a new quarterback in, the only way we're moving on from DJ, in my opinion, is if we have the number 1 overall pick. That's the only way. I don't think we're going with Justin Fields. I don't think we're going with anybody else. It's Trevor Lawrence, or you go with the top player on your board at the time. That's how I feel about it. And even it's hard to say though. You never know. Other GMs might like Justin Fields. What do you think of Justin Fields? Because I haven't watched too much of him. I know he can run. I know he can pass. And he's a very, very talented player. But do you see him as a guy the Giants would take if they had a shot at him?
My thing is, and I know you scout the player and you don't scout the team, right? But I just think it's really difficult to scout Ohio State quarterbacks because they all dominate. And they all look really good. And they're all in the same offense that just dominates. And they're not playing against like a lot of the amazing competition that you would like to see them play against. They are just dominating everybody every year, every Ohio State quarterback who steps in. So it's hard to scout a guy like that, and I haven't really started to scout him yet, so I haven't really started to break down the film, but eventually in the offseason I will. So I can't really say, but I can say that I am skeptical, just off of the things that I know. I'm skeptical of him, and I probably wouldn't trade in Daniel Jones for Justin Fields at this point. Trey Lance is a guy that you can consider just because of the raw traits that he has, but Trevor Lawrence, I mean, we've said it before. If you have the ability to take Trevor Lawrence, I don't care who you are, as long as you're not the Chiefs or Ravens, you take him. Even the Texans, I think, would consider it. Probably not, though, because Deshaun Watson's great. He's just trapped in a really shitty environment. But I just think, would a GM actually make that move? I don't think so, and the reason why is because of Joe Judge and his coaching staff. Joe Judge, Jerry Shaplinski, they love Daniel Jones, and they believe in Daniel Jones as their quarterback 1, right? So I don't think a GM would come in and change their minds instantly, and then, there would be bad relationships there. I think whatever GM comes in is going to be a believer in Daniel Jones. And then I think he's going to be the quarterback. And the other players that we mentioned in the last question, those are going to be the targets at the top of the draft. But like I said, that number one pick, if we somehow tank and we bottom out and we get to that number one pick, I don't care who the GM is, they should take Trevor Lawrence. But I just don't see a scenario other than that where we actually do take a quarterback in the top of the draft.
Right. I would agree 100%. Now, I appreciate everyone sticking around. Almost at the hour mark now. Broke down a good portion of what we expect to see against the Bucs. We'll probably do a live. Well, we'll definitely be doing a live stream before the game on Monday,
For
and
sure.
we'll get you guys involved, have some fun, drink some tequila to get prepared for this whopping. And this one's kind
Maybe
of like
gobble
we're
some
going
glizzies.
into it expecting it. This is the one game this year that I'm going into feeling like we are going to lose this game. I've felt this way towards other teams, but the Bucs are really good, man. This is the one team that I'm like, we can't beat this team.
I agree. They're Super Bowl contenders. It's going to be tough. I think you look at both their offense and their defense. It's explosive and it's suffocating. And the Giants are probably, I'm going to say,
I just want us to be competitive.
Quarter. I think first quarter and a half it will be. And then at some point, Tom Brady and the Bucs are just going to explode. And then
the second half adjustments for them are going to get us.
I think at some point we'll run out of gas. We'll be hanging by a thread, and then the thread will break. That's basically what I see. So that's my prediction. But
yep,
I don't know.
Bend don't break, and eventually it's going to break.
I'm still excited though. I'm excited, honestly, low key excited to watch Tom Brady torch us because I just like to watch that team play. They're fun. They're explosive. They're a good team to watch.
If we compete with them, we're in a better place than we thought. And
I agree.
I think Patrick Graham and Joe Judge know Brady. They know how to get to him. They know what makes him tick. So maybe that insider information helps. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. We'll find out.
Maybe we're gonna win.
But thank you guys. Yep. Maybe we're gonna win. Knock on wood. Prayers to the football gods. Put your spoon under your pillow. I don't know. Whatever you got to do. This is gonna be one that needs all the superstition we can get.
Correct.
Nonetheless, thank you guys so much for tuning into Fireside Giants and sticking with us for the hour and having some fun talking Giants and really enjoying this team and what we are building here. And remember, we'll be doing the live stream Monday night, so keep an eye out for that. We'll be posting it and have some fun, answer questions, maybe eat some glizzies. We'll see what's good. So once again, thank you guys so much, and we'll catch you guys next time.